It's finally time to talk about Modern Warfare 2. No, not Modern Warfare 2, Modern Warfare 2. That's gonna get annoying. Anyways, the campaign has finally dropped, and as many of you probably know, I'm quite a big fan of the last Modern Warfare, as I thought the campaign for that game was one of the best in the series. It gave Call of Duty a fresh and unique feel. Every mission felt different, and the game as a whole never got stale. So knowing that there was a sequel on the way, I got really excited about how they would be able to one-up themselves. Would they be able to capture the magic of the first game again? Well, it turns out that they only kind of did. The truth is, Modern Warfare 2 just barely misses the mark. Let's go ahead and start off with the objectively good stuff. First off, yeah, the game plays good, of course. That will always be an objective fact of these games. You know that, I know that, it's something that will never change about Call of Duty. It's a very pretty game. There were some instances where I just stopped for a minute and looked at how good the game looks. Sound design is top-notch. The performances the actors give are all very well done. Basically, the overall production value is fantastic and it all clicks together. What doesn't click together, however, is the campaign overall, as it has a hard time with being a memorable experience. The first thing that I noticed was the fact that the opening for this game is extremely dull. Compare this to the last game where it has an extremely well done opening. It establishes the stakes right off the bat and you can really feel the dread that it oozes. Is it subtle? No, not at all. But it is definitely effective. In this game, it just kind of starts. You aren't exactly sure what's happening, and the first mission isn't really a mission as much as it is a playable missile strike. A very weird way to start the game, to say the least. Killer Capture is the next mission, and it left me with the fear that this game wasn't going to try anything new. It felt like a mission that could have easily been in the last game. Night vision goggles? Check. Slow clearing of a building? Check. Cheeky placement of enemies? Check. While it felt good to play this mission, there wasn't really anything that was grabbing me. The opening definitely didn't help with this either. Since I'm not really sure what's going on so far and no real stakes have been established, I just feel like I'm shooting people without a reason why. On top of that, I feel like this mission goes on for just a little bit too long. At least by the end, we finally have ourselves some real stakes.
Steaming Jesus.
Ballistic missiles.
It's a mobile launcher.
These will go 1,000 miles.
Yeah, at least. How the hell did Iran get their hands on this?
Laswell, this is Ghost. We got something.
Tell me you found her son.
Ghost. Take a look at this.
Ghost, do you have her son?
Negative. We found a weapons cache. Hassan's got missiles. They're American.
We finally get reintroduced to Captain Price and Gaz again. I gotta give props to the writers for making the relationship between Price and Gaz so strong. You can really feel the connection they have between each other. The big theme of this mission is stealth, and while throwing knives at dudes while they quietly slump into the water feels great, the actual stealth itself doesn't. Maybe it's just my undying love for Metal Gear speaking to me, but I've always loved how those games give you the chance to try and make up for your mistakes if you're skilled enough. In this game, I feel like if you get spotted just even a little bit, you're fucked. Enemies go from suspicious to red alert in milliseconds. It leaves you with very little room for error. It doesn't help either that the stealth indicator is kind of unhelpful in this game. Usually in stealth games, you'll get a marker that fills up, letting you know if someone is about to spot you. The visuals are clear and letting you know what's happening, but the indicator in this game is applied to the compass at the top of the screen. It's totally fine for when it's used for notifying where enemies are, but I think using it as the stealth indicator doesn't quite work. It's a shame because I think that COD lends itself pretty well to stealth gameplay, but here it's executed in a pretty half-baked way. Still, it is fun to throw those knives.
Enemy down.
This is also the mission where we find out that the CARTEL is involved in this conflict. Now, the idea of a Call of Duty game where you go up against the CARTEL is a pretty fucking awesome idea. Unfortunately, that aspect of the game is also pretty half-baked. There are parts where that idea shines, but a lot of the game kind of sidelights them for boring enemies. But we'll get to that later. This mission is one I was pretty excited to play. The start of this is actually quite cool. It starts with this Mission Impossible vibe. You're identifying cartel members and start picking them off quietly one by one. Price grabs the prime suspect and then the other cartel members start shooting at you. And this is when I realized that these guys hit really fucking hard for some reason. I was playing on regular difficulty for this playthrough, and there were multiple instances where I would just get completely wiped. So in this mission, as soon as they pulled out their guns, I got dropped like a bad habit. Now, yeah, on veteran difficulty that should totally happen, but I just wanted to treat this playthrough like an action movie playthrough. So I had to hide behind some cover that I felt like you were not supposed to hide behind, and then I thought I got stuck in this area, and yeah, not a great way to end the mission. Alright, this one is actually really damn good, minus one part that happens towards the end. In this mission, we're introduced to Alejandro, one of the new main characters. Alejandro is a cool guy that does cool guy stuff like shoot bad guys and beat the absolute fucking dog shit out of bad guys. The mission itself has you going through a neighborhood on the other side of the US-Mexico border. As you might know from my video on the first game, I'm a big fan of when these games integrate civilians because then it makes you become extra careful about where you're aiming your weapon, and this mission is no different. You end up having to go into people's houses to chase after the main bad guy and... oh, that's right. I haven't even talked about the main bad guy in this game, and I'm not really surprised. He's incredibly boring, and that's because of one fatal flaw. You don't interact with him enough. Even in the last game, Barkov had a pretty noticeable presence, and you had a whole mission where you got to interact with him and see how much of an absolute piece of shit he was. This guy should have been a much more prominent threat. Instead, he just hides the whole game. Pussy. Anyway, there's an encounter in one of the houses that I actually liked a lot. You go inside to chase the main baddie, and two men walk up to ask why you're in their home, which they are rightfully mad about. But before you try to leave, they pull their guns on you and you have to put them down. It's a nice parallel to the Mission Clean House, where you were doing the same thing, but in that instance you were taking down terrorists. In this, it's just normal people. The rest of the mission plays out pretty straightforward, with you cornering the villain in a house until he retaliates and you have to get inside to nab him. Now there's something that happens in this house that had me just dumbfounded by the time I figured out what I had to do, and it's easily the worst part of this mission. After clearing two baddies on the first floor, a woman pops out from behind this wall and puts her gun down. But she goes to reach for the gun again and I shoot her. But the game treats that as a fail state. It kept happening until I finally just stopped and let the rest of the animation play out, and then she just runs out the door. This is clearly a scripting error, and hopefully they come up with a patch soon that addresses this issue, because that shit made me so fucking confused. Most of this mission is pretty good up until you get to this house and that weird shit with the woman happens. It doesn't ruin the rest of the mission, but it is a clear flaw and hopefully it'll get fixed. This mission is mostly fine, I would say. The first half of this is just a generic shooting gallery, and the last half is a pretty fun chase down a mountainside. So I'm overall pretty mixed on this one. I wish they had thought up of a more interesting intro for this mission because it's mostly a bog standard shooting gallery. It's kind of a big whatever mission until that chase at the end. Okay, so these missions are ones that I don't hate, but I have to point out how very similar they are to Death from Above and All Gillied Up. Now, I'm not one to say you can't pay homage to previous games in the series, but it just feels kind of lazy to take these two missions and kind of just plop them in this game. I'm not saying these missions are bad, they're very well made, but I was just really unimpressed by how similar these missions were to the ones that they were trying to pay homage to. Close Air and Hardpoint are basically just the same as Death from Above. Out of the three missions, these two are definitely the most overtly similar. They just don't add anything different that Death from Above did back in the day. Recon by Fire is almost the same thing as All Gillied Up. It's not 100% the same, but it's probably about 70% the same. Crawling in the grass? Check. Sniping? Check. Sniping with having to account for distance? Check. Sneaking? Check. Lie still while enemies are passing you by? Check. It just doesn't do anything special, really. The only thing it does differently is you do these mini sieges across the map, which is kind of neat, but after those, it's right back to sniping. I'm sure if I didn't play COD 4 already, I probably would have liked these missions more. But I was just disappointed that they decided to rely on the familiar instead of coming up with something new for these three missions. But right when I thought the game was going to get lazier and lazier, they pull a fucking 180 and put a bullet of fun straight between my eyes.
operators! Captain, gas fell out! Say again? The sergeant! He's gone!
Not dead, Nick! I'm hanging from a bloody rope!
This mission is so much goddamn fun. You go from being suspended from a cord upside down to leaping from car to car, dodging landmines, leaning out of your truck to shoot dudes on other trucks, shooting a grenade launcher from the back of a truck. It's just a wonderful mission. While some of it is stuff you've done in a COD campaign before, it's all about the execution of the mission. It starts with a really great set piece and continues into a fantastic chase that keeps escalating. If I were to pick one mission from the game that I thought was genuinely great, this would be the one I would pick. Okay, everything from violence and timing onwards is what I would consider to be the better part of the game. So each of the next few missions I liked in one way or another. El Nombre is an infiltration mission that starts with Soap turning himself in and getting interrogated, where you have the choice of picking certain dialogue options. I'm not exactly sure if picking different ones affects the outcome of something in the game, but I doubt it's as important as something like in Black Ops 2. After getting interrogated, a disguised Alejandro grabs you before it's too late and directs you to get access to the roof. I was actually quite shocked that the stealth in this mission didn't really bother me as much like it did earlier in the game. I think that's mainly because you're sneaking in hallways and in enclosed rooms as opposed to more open areas. There's way more room to mess up, I think. But yeah, good mission. I like it. So this mission has a lot in common with two missions from the original trilogy actually. Crew Expendable and The Only Easy Day Was Yesterday. While this mission could have fallen into the same trap that Close Air and Recon by Fire did, it does enough differently to make it feel fresh. Specifically in the second half of the mission where you go to a cargo ship to shut down a missile. When you get on the ship, I was half expecting it to just play out like Crew Expendable, but they changed the way you make it to the top deck. Instead of the cargo containers being stationary, they're actually moving around on the deck. So they become active obstacles on the map, which were actually pretty fun to dodge along with the incoming gunfire. I think this mission was the most successful when it comes to taking an old mission from the original games and remixing them for the newer games. Now, this mission ends with a twist where Shadow Company ends up taking over the operation and basically becomes hostile. Now, while I don't think objectively it makes the story worse, in my opinion, I wish they had explored the cartel being the main villains a bit more. I just find them so fascinating as villains, especially for a Call of Duty campaign. It's just a shame that we didn't get to explore them more, and hopefully they can return in some form in a future campaign. This mission is pretty damn cool if I'm being honest. Okay, so in the last cutscene, Soap got shot by one of the Shadow Company goons, and now has to try and hide from them and survive by scavenging what he can in the environment. There's even a fucking crafting system? What is this, Far Cry? But in all seriousness, I like the tone of this mission. You truly feel isolated and that all you have to survive is just the normal shit around you. I like the segment where you have to use the water to sneak behind these guys and kill them. One of the only 2 times in the game I thought the stealth actually came together and felt good. They got safes that you can crack open like an immersive sim, which I found kind of fun. Made me break out my pen and legal pad for those codes. There's a section where it dumps you into a wider area of the map and you have to take out or sneak around these goons to get to the next section. It sort of puts you in this First Blood kind of mindset where you have to become a one-man army and take out everyone in the vicinity. I said fuck stealth and went all out. I massacred these goons.
Gonna find you!
The ending is a little if I'm being honest. Escaping from the remaining goons doesn't feel like a fight for survival, but more so just kind of passing by. It felt kind of weak. Other than that, I think this mission is pretty cool, and it's definitely one that I would want to replay again and try new tactics. Good mission. Not amazing though. Maybe it's because it fulfills that COD prison break-in and escape mission quota that happens every once in a while, but it does have a pretty cool section where you take control of ghosts from a camera feed and it feels like a tactics game. It's like that mission from the last game where you control that lady in the embassy, but this time you can murder these guys. Yeah, fun mission overall, but nothing to shake a stick at. Literally just a flashback. Next. That's right, everyone's a ghost now. A really fun siege of Alejandro's base that's been taken over by Shadow Company. This intro with the trip mines is really fun, feels very Metal Gear. The bulk of the mission has you clearing certain buildings, and that's all well and good. I will say that the boss fight at the end is kind of frustrating. You gotta gather all the C4 so you can blow up the tank, but the problem is the tank is usually always moving and all these fucking goons keep showing up. There's already a fucking tank that's shooting huge ass rounds at me while I scrounge for C4. I think that's plenty of firepower to throw at me. Regardless, it feels really good to finally kill that Philip Graves prick. Burn in hell, you piece of shit. Alright, this is it, the last mission, and it's also one of the best. It opens really strong with you rappelling slowly down the side of this building, then you and Price head in and start fucking dudes. But I think the best part of this mission comes in towards the end when you finally have to stop the missile. So you grab the case and hide from the main bad guy, and you have to shut down the missile while also making sure the bad guy doesn't catch you while you're doing it. It's a pretty tense section, and it doesn't end there. After detonating the missile, you still have to kill the bad guy. So you have to use your John Rambo skills to take out as many guys as possible, and then the bad guy tries to shoot you. But then we pull a GTA 5 and take control of Ghost to take this guy down for good.
Perfect show, LT.
You called it, Sergeant.
All stations. Hassan's down. Enemy KIA.
And yeah, that's the end of it. We get one more scene with Task Force 141 hanging out in a bar and setting up the inevitable Modern Warfare 3. No, not that one. In the end, while the second half of the game is really good, that first half just did not land for me. It's not particularly bad, it just suffers from feeling kind of par for the course. The thing is, the quality is all there. It has that trademark Infinity Ward polish that does not go unnoticed. Nothing about that first half blew me away. The second half is where I think the game finally comes together and starts feeling like the pulpy action movie I think they were going for. Violence and timing really is the mission where the game took a turn for the better in my opinion. Each mission after that felt unique and fun in their own way. I guess I was just expecting more out of the game overall. Being a follow-up to what I think is one of the best COD games, I was expecting the game to just be as good, if not better. I was looking for that wow factor that the last game had, and only half of it is here. I think that the game overall is objectively solid. I don't think this game is bad at all, but it all didn't land for me. And that's why I think that Modern Warfare 2 is disappointing.